Hello, and welcome to Experts Unplugged Leadership Speaker Spotlights, where I, as a fellow business owner, I'm going to highlight some of our amazing entrepreneurs out there. And our chat here today focuses on leadership and how our expertise impacts others to think like leaders. So, most of you know me. I'm Joanne Newborn. I'm the CEO of Newborn Evolution, where we help smart leaders build teams that think strategically, problem solve effectively, and really take true ownership of their outcomes. So today I have a very special treat. I'm talking to Eric Vincent. He's the founder and CEO of Black Ink. Now, this you have to hear from Eric before we start talking. Quote, it starts with a quote. I'm not here to uphold the status quo. I'm here to dismantle it. End quote. And this comes from Niccolò Machiavelli's sentiment in The Prince. And these words are actually tattooed on Eric's arm as a daily reminder that societal norms shackle us, engendering fear in our dealings with potential clients, adversaries, and life itself, which is so poignant right now in my life. So I love that we're having this talk. The genesis of Black Ink, it traces back to Eric's tumultuous life journey. And amidst the chaos, he realized that action, not narratives, which is all very poignant for me right now, propels growth. With a penchant for defying convention, Eric embarked on this venture driven by a melange of experiences. His life's narrative brims with missteps and encounters with the darker facets of existence, yet amid the turmoil, Eric harbored an unwavering belief in the possibility of betterment. This essence, akin to the entrepreneurial spirit, fuels his ethos. And for Eric, excuse me, entrepreneurship mirrors a simple yet profound philosophy: identify problems, devise solutions, and carve out a unique path, perhaps imparting wisdom to students along the way or changing corporate paradigms. Love that. At its core lies originality, a beacon guiding his endeavors, remaining true to the core of your identity. Woo, this is very exciting. So thank you for sharing time with me today, Eric.
You're welcome.
So, in addition to what I just read, I would love really what was that one impetus that made you become an entrepreneur?
Um, I was probably 16 years old. No, actually, I was younger because I lied to get the job at McDonald's. I was younger, and there was a college student who was my quote unquote manager, and he was bullying me in the dining room, and I just tackled him across the tables. I had enough, and at that point, I knew I couldn't work for people. That was really the moment I'm like, I cannot be with these kind of people. Like,
Yeah.
that if that's the real impetus of my life, that's the moment I was like, I can't do this.
And that's amazing because that was so young, to really have that, aha moment in your life of this is the direction I'm going to go in.
Yeah, and it was probably fueled out of anger more than anything else. But I was also came from a really bad home environment. It was just constant wrought with abuse. So there was already the escape mentality in place. You know what I mean? So already I was having trouble at that point with authority figures.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So that
yeah.
was just it was a combination of
Yeah.
things that made me say, I've got to carve my own path.
That's great. And it's so funny because I was just talking about core memories in children with someone the other day. And there are these core memories that really shape our career paths. It could be something that happens when we're quite young, but it's something that'll stay with us, that'll shape, our path along the way. So to me, it's like, you've got some of those core memories in there that
Yeah.
were shaping your path to become an entrepreneur. Um, I know also entrepreneurs do face some resistance. And I was curious if you had faced it. And if you did, what was the resistance that you had along the way?
Well, I think initially and I think we see less of it today,
Hmm.
with the internet and with programming and things like that. But back then, entrepreneurs, when you said I'm an entrepreneur, I'm self-employed, the immediate response was, oh, you're unemployed.
Interesting.
You
Yeah.
know, like I remember that, like, oh, there was this whole thing. What do? You sell you sell, fake Rolexes on the street. What are you like? It was a really, for me, and I guess the 80s and
Hmm.
early 90s was a very different environment in entrepreneurship. If you didn't come from, and I don't want to say it like that it's a bad thing, but if you didn't come from pedigree, if you didn't come from, if you didn't have the college background, if you were hustling really hard to build your business at the time, there was just a different view of what you were. You know, it just was very different. So the obstacles were the credibility,
Mm.
and I didn't, I mean, I'm a high school dropout. I got my GED later. I went to college later, but at that time, it was all learning curve and it was all trying to figure it out and it was all finding mentors to teach you.
Amazing.
And so not having a college degree as well was another obstacle that I had to face. So it was constantly prove you can do it. And then also, even today, this applies. You're only good as the last deal you do,
Mm.
right? So,
Yeah.
you could have this great history, but how'd your last deal go down? How'd your last transaction go down? How'd your last customer, what were their feelings about you? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so, I faced that as well. So overcoming that though was just, and you go back to childhood and child memories. My path was, I didn't, when people come out of that really dark environment, they really end up, I think, going one of two ways. They're either like massive, crazy survivalists that figure it out, or they're people they end up not figuring it out. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And
Yeah.
they're laden by their baggage. I went that the other way. It was like nothing stopping me, and I learned early on that the most dangerous person in the room is the person that has nothing to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I, what do I have to lose? If I'm starting with zero, what do I have to lose? And that's just been the way I just plowed through problems, solve the problems, and obviously over the years become more refined, more strategic, more tactful. Back when I was like 19, it was like, yeah, screaming and, like, what the hell am I going to do? And trying to figure it out and not, but you learn.
Yeah.
So,
Two things really popped for me that what you said was finding mentors. And I think in terms of everyone's leadership journey, finding those mentors along the way are so important. Like people shouldn't have to feel that they have to do it all on their own. Yes, you're a business owner and it's your business, but there are so many people along the way that really do want to help. They want to impart their knowledge. So that is such an important part of being an entrepreneur is finding your mentors. Um,
for
the other
sure.
thing, oh, go ahead. What were you going to
No, I
say?
said for sure,
Yeah.
finding mentors, making mentors. Some people don't know that they're going to be your mentor. You just latch onto them.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing was interesting that you said you're only as good as the last thing that you've done. So I would challenge that a little bit in terms of like brand building, of making sure that if you're a business owner, I'm talking to all the business owners out there, that you're really keeping track of your success stories and everyone builds upon the other, right? So even if you're having a down quarter or a down year, you still have all that credibility, like you said,
Mm.
under your belt, and you can speak to it, right? A lot of people forget about the things that they do and they move on to the next. And that's a mindset thing. We stay in that mindset of, well, I'm only as good as the last thing I did. But the thing is, you've got years and years and years of amazing success stories and experience under your belt. So I would encourage entrepreneurs out there to be keeping track of all of that for
I,
themselves.
I completely agree. So let me level set that comment a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
It's not about my mindset of being or yours as an entrepreneur. You're only good as the last deal you do because we should all be proud of everything, always.
yeah,
But when it's 7 out of 10 people want to bark about the negative and only one person wants to talk about the positive, the loudest voice about your workflow or what you did is always those seven. It's a greater number of people barking the negative for whatever reason. That's a statistical fact.
yeah,
That's what that is. So then that's the in and then you go back to brand building, and that's what I did for years is developing brands. I still do. You have to police your brand, you have to watch your brand, and you have to be on top of all that, because that's the one thing in the public sphere that people are going to hear is that negative feedback over that one person that gave you 5 stars.
Yeah.
So that's where that you're only good as the last deal you do comes into play, because people bark the negative
Yeah,
feedback all
it's
the time.
true. It is a scientific fact that our brains do go to the negative, I think 70% of the time, and our minds go to the positive 30% of the time. I
Mhm.
think that's the percentages, because I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
um,
love to go.
it's a safety mechanism from our mind, and it's trying to keep us safe. So it will look for the negative before it looks for the positive, just to make sure that we're staying in a very safe survival space. So that's a big one for entrepreneurs, because that piece keeps them stuck quite often, because
Wow.
the mind wants to keep you safe, and being an entrepreneur is very vulnerable, and unsafe for the mind.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I don't have that mindset. I don't
Mhm.
know. I think because I think I'm drawing out of my childhood and, my teen years, a lot of that negative and how I overcame it. And that's what made me sort of have. So when I see a negative situation, I'm trying to find the silver line. As cliche as that sounds, I'm
Mhm.
trying to see what the advantage of is that I can turn the bad into the good. Um, and again, I think into some way that's just sort of maybe a different mechanism in the survival mode, right? Coming out of survival mode, because I had to learn how to come out of survival mode, which I probably only maybe did 10 years ago.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
I probably only really started to realize I'm in survival mode. I got to be in success mode.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? There's a difference. But yeah, so that makes sense. It really does. I don't think like that though. I
Right.
don't have that like, hey, this was negative and this was a bad deal.
Yeah, that's great. And it probably takes practice also, um,
Definitely.
to get there, building that
Definitely.
muscle. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are right now, for either yourself or for, like, the entrepreneurial space in general, like right now during this time?
Again, this might sound a little cliche, but the biggest challenges even I face is me as the entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Right? That's the biggest. And you always hear this, and the problem when we say it is that, you're the biggest obstacle to your success. We never give people those solutions. Well, how do I stop being the biggest obstacle? What makes me the biggest obstacle? So out of that, the next biggest thing is understanding, and I think that's where that's that next obstacle is understanding what we have to turn in and look at us and say, where did I fall short? How do I fix it? And that's what we need to do. So that next obstacle is finding the resources like yourself to be able to step back. And this is not a plug for Joanne. This is just a fact. Be able to step back and say, well, how do I improve me so I get the most out of me so that I stop being that obstacle? And I just said maybe 10 years ago, I realized I was still in survival mode. I had
Mhm.
to flip into success mode and start retraining my brain and the way I did things and the way I perceive things in order to achieve success mode. Because
Yeah.
survival mode keeps you here.
Yep.
You're always what the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So I think those are sort of those biggest obstacles is genuinely self. Now, from the
Mm.
let's say an economic standpoint or a business standpoint, um, the market's flooded with media, and it's hard to get past the noise.
Mm.
And the status quo is what keeps you in the white noise. And that's, I think, the biggest obstacle for a lot of people in small business when it comes to that economic space and that marketing space is you've got people that are promising you 50,000 new followers or viral videos or whatever it is. That's a lot of short game BS.
Yeah.
Right, it really is, but it's an easy thing to get caught up in that because you're desperate to get that business and
Mhm.
try to cut through the noise. And that's where you could talk about that you're an out of the box thinker,
Mhm.
but that means you just think. So
Yeah.
you have to act. So like we are out of the box actors. So when I say that I want to push someone out of a plane to prove a point,
Yeah.
I'm going to push somebody out of a plane to prove a point. Some point in time, it's happening. because you have to act in order to get the attention and cut through the noise.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest obstacles that businesses face is that little bit of fear of trying to cut through that noise,
Mm-hmm.
because fear is loss, right? That's what it all comes down to. What do they have to lose? And the most dangerous person in the room is somebody who has nothing to lose. So, that's the obstacle really, is getting again past all that noise in this
Mm-hmm.
market space and getting
Yeah.
good marketing.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting what you said, about all the, I get so many of those emails, it annoys me, but people are looking for like a magic pill all the time, right? So if they see that and they're like, oh, I could get, 50,000 new leads and someone will do that for me. But I think building a great, um, business and a legacy, it takes time, and it's incremental, right? And you have to make your goals, and you have to make your business plan, and how much do you want to make. And so I'm coming from, the background that I have in the wine and spirits industry. Like, I've seen brands be built over time and become incredible, and then I've seen brands that skyrocket, and when they skyrocket, they plummet just as quickly as they skyrocket. So it's going to take time, work, energy, sweat, blood, sweat, and tears. It's not that you're going to enjoy it when you love what you're doing. So it's the commitment too, I think.
It's the long game. I
Yeah.
mean, it's funny because and working with the government agencies, I always hear this. A lot of people, a lot of small businesses come in, might be a freshman business, might be a startup, might be a sophomore business. And when they say, what's your 5-year plan? A lot of them are like, make money.
Yeah.
That's not a 5-year plan. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to have a 5-year, like we have for the procurement com brand, we have a
Mhm.
5-year, a 7-year, and an 8-year plan.
That's
And by
awesome.
year 10, we want to be able to sell the brand.
That's great.
you know so we have a trajectory. Every business needs to have that trajectory, even if it's just loose on a spreadsheet right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even if a business says, well, I'm in New Jersey, I'm in New York, I'm on the internet, I want to open a business in Arizona in year 5. Well, just write it down on a spreadsheet, that's all. Actually said something at our biz talk where you talked about your journey. I
Hmm.
remember this. And you had wrote it down on a piece of paper and forgot about it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then suddenly here you are. And I don't want to get into the whole manifesting thing because I believe in it, but I don't want to get into it. But
Yeah.
that's a plan. You wrote a
Yes.
plan on a piece of paper, and that was the plan. And that's what people need, is
Yeah.
even if it's a note.
Yep, absolutely. And you have to have that energy of belief in it, right? I
Yeah,
can write it on a piece of paper, and I can leave it here, but if I don't believe it, nothing's going to happen
right.
either. So, awesome. So, along the same lines, what do you think are some of the biggest opportunities out there today for entrepreneurs and for your business?
Well, for entrepreneurs, I'm always going to jump into the gov contracting space,
Yeah.
not as a single source, and that's a mistake a lot of people make, but as another vertical in the business, right? And I think because, I think the number's really small in the federal playground. I don't even think it's 30% of businesses nationwide are taking advantage of government contracting, which means,
Wow.
what was it last year? $400 billion went to 30% of the national businesses,
Yeah, amazing.
right? And in New Jersey, for example, there's 930,000 as of, I think it was 2021, 930,000 registered businesses. And I think there's only like 20 some odd percent taking advantage of government contracts. Now,
Wow.
with that means you have to be prepared,
Yes.
right? So the opportunity is there. So you have to get the resources, you have to get the training, you have to get the knowledge. There is a learning curve. You can't
Hmm.
just wake up and say, hey, I'm going to sell blue widgets to the government because I'm awesome. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's a great vertical. And I think that's a prime opportunity. I
Hmm.
also think, depending on when this airs, I also think that getting contract ready for FIFA is going to be huge because we got the World Cup coming to New Jersey in 2025. We also
Wow. You're
got
right.
Homecoming 250 coming, which is the birthday for the Navy and the Marines happening between Philadelphia and Camden, which is going to be huge. It's the 250th birthday of the military. So I think those are short-term opportunities coming, right? for small
Mhm.
businesses. I think but long-term government contracting is a great vertical to start entering into and trying your hands at, because there's so many tiers involved in it that you don't necessarily have to sell to the government, but you could be selling to somebody who sells to the government,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So it's like so much opportunity there that people could take advantage of, and it's not as scary as it sounds. It
Yeah.
takes a minute though. It takes a minute, but it's not scary.
Yeah, I'm
I think
so
that's a
glad
big opportunity.
there's so much actually like free um resources out there and mentors that don't cost anything in the government space. And as you know, we play in the government space, and I'm just going to give a little plug because I'm so excited that we finally have our federal women-owned small business certification. It took almost a year for it to come through. We've got our woman business enterprise in New Jersey and with the Port Authority. So
That's
I'm
great.
plugging.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm letting you know in case you want to come. In June, we're having an open house for government agencies and prime contractors, where we're gonna, present at the open house some of the things that we do. So I'll make sure that
Yeah,
you're.
make sure we get the invite. You know we'll be there. I think I'm going to give a plug for us too. I think
Yeah, go for it.
the other opportunity that's out there is to visit our website, procurementcon.com, and sign up for our newsletter, because we do give valuable resources
Yeah.
besides our typical event marketing. So we do, resource emails. We do small business spotlight emails for small businesses, and we don't charge for that advertising. That's our give back to small businesses for signing up with our newsletter and coming to our events, because our events is where we bring a lot of the same thing. You bring resources
Mhm.
to the table, put them in at the table. We have one happening in June at Brookdale Community College, and we're producing our next big event at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City for November, which is going to bring some more federal agencies to the table. So I think that's another opportunity to access those resources, because the problem with small businesses accessing those resources, as you know, is there's a lot out there and they're hard to land and get to. It's a full-time job to find them.
It is. It is. And I think, there's, like I said, there's so much free information out there, really sorting through it as well to see like what's the best. But, like play. I love, I love the term play. Go and play. Don't take it so seriously. Go and play
Yep.
and see if it's a good fit for you. Learn, go watch some of the webinars, get your newsletter, and just find out about it. Um,
Yeah, you know what? You landed right there. Take a minute, because your customer's still going to be there. Don't feel like I got to take care of the customer right now. Take the 10 minutes to watch the webinar, to fill out the resource application. Absolutely. Your customer's not going to go anywhere, and you're going to serve them better later anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so last question. What advice would you want to give, in addition to the great advice you've already given, to someone who is embarking on becoming an entrepreneur, or someone who's feeling frustrated right now?
Yeah. Well, I think I'll get cliche here and say fear is the killer of joy. If
Yeah.
you are afraid of doing something and take a risk, pause a minute and say, what are you really afraid of? It's going to come down to loss. What are you afraid of losing?
Mm,
Right? I think that's really important, because that's why we don't take risk. We have a fear of loss. That's really all it is. It's not even a fear of ridicule. It's a fear of loss. We're losing something, whether it's credibility or mom's approval. You know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
And so once you understand what that loss, you're looking, really evaluate, is that loss that bad? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And then just make that is the first and foremost, because what's happening is if you're somebody trying to decide if you want to be self-employed, and you're sort of teetering on that fence, just look at the person who became self-employed. They jumped that fear bar. They said, I'm doing it. And it was just getting past that moment of fear. And that's the personal. And the professional side of being an entrepreneur, do at least the bare minimum. Create a marketing strategy, as an outline. Just do the bare minimum outline. You don't have to make it wordy. Do the bare minimum, so you create a roadmap, at least if you're not going to do a 5-year plan for the next year, so
Yeah.
that you know. And again, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be jotted down in a notebook or a sketchbook. but just write your bullet points and make sure that you change the word need to want.
Mm,
Stop needing
yeah.
and always want. Because if you need it, you're chasing it. If you want it, you control it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm going to add one more thing to what you said.
Sure.
I think a lot of people become entrepreneurs, kind of like what you had mentioned a while ago, like the from anger, right? But maybe they're working for a company and they're really frustrated with the corporate world, but they are making it as a knee-jerk reaction versus a plan. And you really need that plan of action before you decide, you're going to walk into your office and say, I quit today. You have to
Yeah.
know. You might know, I want to be an entrepreneur. You might even know what that is, but you actually need a plan and you need to set a foundation for yourself for when make that shift so that you are, financially stable at the same time. Like it doesn't just happen magically. As no matter what we manifest, we still need to create the plan.
That works.
So
Yeah.
exactly like you said, put it on paper.
Hey, my first business was me going and being like buying the supplies I needed for signs. I had no plan. I started making hand painted signs. I was like 18 years old. That was my first self-employed business. I had no plan. And then like the first time somebody wasn't going to pay me, I didn't know what to do.
Mm,
I had no
yeah.
plan. I didn't know what to do. What would happen? You know what I mean? Like that was my first venture. I
Yeah.
was just like, okay, what do I do? And I guess I don't get paid because I don't know what to do.
Amazing. And so those are all lessons learned. So yeah, like you said, like when you get with someone like you, someone like me, that can help you along the way, you don't have to have those hard lessons.
Yeah.
You can actually be prepared for these things.
Yeah, it is. It's true. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that like to pay it forward. They don't even have to be from an organization. Sometimes you
Mhm.
just have to ask, hey, can you show me this and show me that? And they're happy to. They're
Yeah.
happy to.
Well, fabulous. That's our little unplugged nugget with Eric Vincent of Black Ink. How can people get in touch with you?
Sure, they can get in touch with me directly at e.vincent@blackinkcreativepartners.com. They could also get in touch with the Procurement Con team, which is me, Kanani, all of us, at team@procurementcon.com.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I encourage everyone to get in touch with Eric. He's a wealth of information and what he does is amazing. And I love working with you and thank you for all the opportunities you've provided for me. And just for everybody else out there, if you would like to work on building a strategic high impact team, you can connect with me. And I just want to thank you so much, Eric. This has been so much fun and I've learned so much today.
All right, and the record button's still on, right?
Mhm.
The recording? Okay, I'm putting you on the spot. You're going to be a speaker at one of my events again.
I would love to. I would love to.
Fantastic.
I love speaking at your events. Thank you. I
Thank you.
accept.
Awesome.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.